I feel like for me, I would like to a to-be list. How do I want to be in this world? How do I want to take up space in this world? How do I want to, who is the woman that I want to become and the woman that I needed growing up? So for me, I think I feel successful when I am actively choosing love for myself and my community and actively choosing healing. And I know that looks different in every stage of my life.
Thank you so much for being here, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we start off the show with a little 2 roses and a thorn. So tell us 2 highs of the past week and 1 low.
2 highs. The first one is I turned in like the first part of my manuscript for my book.
Yes. We love
like
that.
First 100-ish pages, so that was a huge deal. Another high was that I went to the desert with my friend, just like during the eclipse, did some like just spiritual work. The low, I feel like I've had a lot of lows, but like my top low, or
Not my top low.
my lowest low, it was, I'm missing my grandmother, and ahorita anda de tóxica y no me habla. So I reached out to her. My grandma left me on red. So that's my low.
Abuela amargada, contesta.
I love you, Tita. If you ever watch this, I love you. You homophobic, toxic girl, I love you. Anyway.
We love the old generation and the things that they don't accept.
No.
But all right, so so now that we know those highs and lows, for those that don't know you, let's start it from the beginning.
Yes, let's go. Bring it back.
All right. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? And let's just start there, and then I'll pick at you.
Do it. All right. Born and raised in the 818 San Fernando Valley.
Okay.
What else?
How did you get your start, everything? So, like, let's say childhood. How was your childhood?
Childhood.
Born and raised in Los Angeles.
Born and raised in San Fernando Valley.
Mexican background?
Yes, my family's we moved back and forth between like the Valley and Mexico. My family's from Guadalajara.
Okay.
Childhood, traumatic.
I love how it's like traumatic.
It's not cute, but
We're here.
we're here. No, I was literally just like reflecting on, I feel like as you grow up, you start to look back, and me writing this book, like literally going through the chapters of my life and like being so grateful for all the things that, I survived, but not only did I survive, but I've like seen my mother overcome and my grandmother overcome, and like the cycles that were passed down to in my family.
Generational trauma.
Yes, and we get to be part of the intergenerational healing. Like for me, I'm like, I want my legacy to be healing. So like fast forward, like I'm a therapist, or I won't fast forward, like I was the first in my family to graduate high school. Like I graduated from the high school that my mom dropped out of because she was pregnant with me. So that's like a cycle that was in a way healed or broke. I was the first to go to college, and I was just talking to my friend how I got into an Ivy League, but I didn't even know it was an Ivy League. It was like Cornell and
It's actually my sister's dream college. Yeah.
Well, I can help if anything. I got my acceptance letter, and it's like, welcome to the Ivy League. And I remember I told my mom, like, ay, mira, mami, es un Ivy League. She's like, ¿qué es eso? I was like, it just means it's a good school. She's like, ay, pues sí, qué bueno. I went there by myself because like my family couldn't afford to like fly with me. Yo con mis dos maletas, they lost them at the airport. Like I tagged along with another family to share a taxi to get to the campus. And they dropped me off like, buena suerte, mija. Like, they're like, bye. I'm like, thank you, family. And yeah, I just like got there with my carry-on, and I was like, oh, thank God I packed extra chones in here. And that was like my unpacking experience, like when I got to college.
So, question.
See.
What do you think, like, because as I hear this story just from the start, I hear you're very much a go-getter. from a very early age. You were the one to break the chain and graduate high school. You were the one to go to the Ivy League. Where did that come from? Because you didn't necessarily grow up seeing that. So where do you think that came from? What experiences or what in you created that?
I feel that I've always, like, desde chiquita, like, when I see something, I'm like almost on Aries. I'm just like, you're a pioneer, like, you firstborn. So I feel like since I was small, I felt like that weight of like, okay, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be me, or I'm responsible for doing this, or like showing up in this way. And since I remember, like, since first grade, I told my mom was like, oh, if you're a student of the month, like, I'll get you a Barbie. I'm like, bet. So I told the teacher, I'm like, hey, Miss Sanchez, like, my mom said that if I'm student of the month, I get a Barbie. Like, how can I be student of the month? She told me I was student of the month. Like, and I'm like, I saw some girls perform in like this team, and I was like, hey, how do I get on that team? Like, that looked really cool. I want to be part of that. She like, show up. These are the auditions. You're too little. Y así como que for college, like, my mom was just like, we can't afford to pay for your college. So if you want to go, you got to get a scholarship. The next day I went to like the college admission lady's office. I'm like, hey, Miss Dropkin, like, how do I get into college? And like, cause I had no idea, pero I asked, or like I knocked on those doors for myself.
Well, you had initiative, which I think sometimes like that in itself, a lot of people lack in. And it's like, it seems like I like having a to-do list, and I like to have a goal. I always tell people, give me homework. Give me homework so I have something to do when it comes to it. So it's like every time when your mom told you the goal is a Barbie, you were like, what do I have to do to get there? If you were like, the goal is college, what do I have to do to get there? And you didn't have any fear. Or if you did, you didn't let it stop you, at least.
That's the part. Like, because the fear is always there.
Right.
And also, I think like a huge part in that, it's like, what do I have to do to get there? But also knowing like I couldn't get there by myself. Like, I remember once I wrote down, I made a list of like all the women that like led the way for me, or helped me, or took me under their wing. Like, it was like Miss Sanchez, like she like was my coach, and Ms. Dropkin, who like sat me down every day and like told me, okay, this is how you get to college. These are the SATs. This is the scholarships. This is this. And like, I made a list, and it's always been like other women like taking me under and giving me what I needed in that moment, whether it was like words, whether it was a hug, whether it was like that medicine. Like, I feel like women heal one another, because we see the struggle desde chiquitas, and I feel like that's something that I've known in my journey, that I wouldn't have made it, or I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for other women like giving me some of their medicine or sharing some of their magic with me.
What's a core memory you have of a time, let's say in middle school or high school, that a woman really helped you?
It was, I mean, I'm gonna go Miss Sanchez. Like, she was like my first and second grade teacher, but I'm still in touch with her. So she's been like, you know, the adult that they say, like, you need an adult to believe in you to like to overcome like a lot of your trauma. It was her. Like, from day one, she's been there. She was there at my like high school. She was there at my college. She was there like post-college, divorce. Like, I was there for her divorce. I remember when she's been like a core woman that's always been there for me, like up and down, thick and thin.
So you went to Cornell.
Yeah.
You're in Cornell, and you're like, all right, I got the scholarship.
Yes.
How was college life for you as a woman?
As a woman, as a Latina, as like a poor person, it was like a culture shock. I always like tell this story that there was like this girl, the chismos, like, she was like shopping online in class instead of taking notes, and I was watching her shop instead of taking notes. And she was like, she bought like a $5,000 shirt. Like, I'm like, one, I didn't even know shirts could cost that much, but two, she just bought it like add cart, boom, 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 check out. And I remember I told my mom, like, Mommy, this girl just bought a $5,000 shirt. She's like, that's like half a year's rent for us. So I just like remember I was introduced to the world of privilege. And there was like so many unspoken rules. There were so many things that I had no idea. I did not know this world existed. I was like, you know, my family's from like living in Pacoima. Like we were just used to like surviving. We were just used to barely making it. And I saw like this other world that I was like thrown into. And like my friends would be like, why do you talk like that? Like, because I'm like, from LA, I'm from the hood. Like, they're like, why don't you enunciate? I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but why don't you mind your fucking business? Anyway, so I taught them a lot. They taught me a lot. And it helped me see that I belong in those places. Like, I had people literally tell me, like, you're only here because of affirmative action. Like, you took my friend's spot. And at first I believed her. I was like, oh my God, me sentí mal.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, I worked probably like 10 times harder than you did. And you're like, I learned what legacy people were, and like that their mom went to college, that their grandmother went to that same college. And I was like trying to think of my grandmother in that place. I'm like, oh, you know, like then I realized how revolutionary but also necessary it was that I was in those places, and that I was speaking up and raising my hand. And I was nervous. Like I felt so out of place, but I knew that I needed to be in places like that in order for more voices and more people to be present with me.
And what was your mental health like in those times when, you know, you're feeling so out of place, you're a Latina, you're a minority not only in your ethnicity but in your financial status. You know, everybody is calling you out like you're the seat taker, that you were just given this because of a statistic and, you know, a quota that they need to make and things of that sort. So college as it is, you know, it's a very hard time. So is high school. But college in an Ivy League, that must have been hard. So how was your mental during those times?
Ooh, it was up and down. Like, I feel like I remember I had lows where, and also like the weather like messes with you. Like the weather, I was like from LA. I got there, it was like snow. Hasta acá, like my boogers would freeze. Like my trenzas would freeze. I remember like my mom would be like, no salgas. She's like, if you leave the house, you're gonna die. I'm like, I have to go to class. So it was like, I felt very lonely, very out of place, like constantly, can I say that word? Mm-hmm. Constantly, what the fuck, all the time, like everything, like algo pasado that I was like, what the fuck is this? How do I, now what? Like now, how do I overcome this now? But it was also like a time where I grew a lot, where I like being away from home, like it was very healing to get away from home, honestly. Like home was not a happy place. Home was not a safe place for me. So being away gave me a chance to like just be with myself and process some of like my childhood, that when you're surviving, like you don't have time to reflect or process or heal. So it was a lot of learning, a lot of growing, a lot of like choosing things for myself. But then I was also like at that moment, like I was like super like wanting to be like a good Christian girl. So I was very involved in like the Christian club at my college, and like a week after I graduated college, like I got married.
Oh wow.
See, like plot twist. I graduated, like I felt like I walked the stage to walk down the aisle, and I got married at a farmer's market in Ithaca, upstate New York. And
was this somebody that you went to college with?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
See, so I was like checking off all the things, like of what a good,
I mean, you were doing the homework.
Yeah.
You know, that they tell us that you're supposed to do.
See, and I was like, you know, I'm like, como dices, like, okay, this is what I have to do. Check, check, check.
Right. And when does it catch up to you that you're just checking off boxes and you're like, am I doing what I want to do? Is this what I want to do? Is this who I am? Mm-hmm. Who am I?
Right.
Oh, like now I have to figure out who I am. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's the who the fuck am I moment. The existential crisis when you're like, when you look at your life and realize like you've been living for everybody else. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had like my existential bathtub moment, like at 4 a.m. Like I was in Seattle. I was living in Seattle. I was like newly married. And I was like in the bathtub and I felt like I was like dying. Like my fire was just like fading. And I remember feeling like either I love myself or I perish, like, or I'm going to just lose myself completely. And then I had to ask.
But did anybody know you were going through this?
No. Mm-mm.
Why?
I was so used to like being strong and like the strong, happy, like mujer, you know? Like, I got this.
Why are we like that? Why do Latinas or even minorities, because this goes to Black, this goes to Asian, you know, we have this tick in our brain that tells us you're not allowed to be soft. Mm-hmm. Because if you are soft, you are weak. Mm-hmm. You are not allowed to say you're in pain, because then you are weak. Why can't you tolerate this? You are not allowed to say that you don't like this, because you need to follow the rules. Mm-hmm. And then they wonder why we all turn crazy. Just kidding. Okay.
Yes, no, it's self-silencing, and we're like taught to silence ourselves since we're little. Like, desde calladita te ves más bonita. Mm-hmm.
Like, I hate that. An older man recently told me that. He goes, te ves más bonita cuando estás calladita y sonriendo. And I was like, I want to do things that I am not allowed to say on national TV. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you're having this 4 a.m. moment.
Yes.
In the bathtub.
I was in the bathtub, like,
Britney Spears, kind of like, what's that movie? I mean, that music video, you know, when she's like, every time I try to fight. She's in a bathtub? No? Okay. All right. Wrong crowd. But, so you're in a bathtub.
Yeah, I'm in a bathtub. I had my moment all wrinkled. I was just like, oh,
wrinkly.
Like, sucks to be me right now. And I asked that question, like, who am I? And also, like, what parts of me do I need to protect? What are the parts of me that I love and that I want to fight for? And at that moment, like, the words, like, brown badass bonita came to me. And I was like, ooh, that's cute. So I got all naked. I got my phone and I started playing around with designs. And I created, like, a shirt. Like, oh, no, the design that said brown badass bonita. And then I'm like, ooh, that would look cute on a shirt. I put it on a shirt. I ordered, like, a shirt online, like, just, like, and then I got there a week later, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna, like, wear this shirt, like, as a statement, a shield, a reminder, like, this is me, this is who I'm fighting for.
A hug.
Yes, it felt just like an armor even. And I, like, put a picture on Instagram, and it, like, blew up. I had, like, women from all over the world, like, I'm a brown badass bonita too, just, like, nobody told me, like, where can I get that shirt? I want that shirt. And I was like, oh, damn. I'm like, I, like, looked up how to sell t-shirts, and I made, like, a little Etsy shop, and I told people, like, okay, get your shirt here. Like, that first day, like, 100 people, like, bought the shirt. And I remember, like, I sat there and I started writing, like, handwritten notes, like, to each person. And from there, I felt like my community was just given to me. Like, I was in Seattle. I felt like I was, like, drowning in this, like, sea of white people. My husband was white. It was just like, oh, I felt I was just, like, drowning. So, and, like, my community came to me through this, like, acceptance and, like, choosing to love myself. And
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
So, are you spiritual? So, you know, I hear this story, and I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God. Mm-hmm. I know that some people are spiritual and don't believe in God, but I hear it, and to me, it's just like, you know that meme when God is, like, holding the teddy bear behind, and you're like, you can't figure out things, and then it was like he needed you to feel that alone for him to be like, there's a whole community of them, and they all feel the same. Mm-hmm. And if you speak up, just like you've done all throughout your childhood, because that's been your purpose, to break the barrier, you'll see how many of them are here.
Yeah.
And that was just, I don't know. It just, like, that was a beautiful moment for you to have.
That's exactly what it felt like, to feel like I'm so alone, and I miss, like, I would, like, Seattle, I would, like, follow, if I heard someone speak Spanish, I would follow them around like a creep, like una chismosa, and I just follow them just so I could hear the Spanish, and then they look at me like, I'm like, yo también hablo español. And I'll be like, yeah, they're like, okay, good for you. But I remember like after that like first like launch, I told people like, okay, we're gonna have a brown badass bonita meetup at this park. Like show up if you know. And like 60 people showed up in Seattle. Like, and I didn't know anybody, and nobody knew. And I called my friend, my best friend Edwin from LA. I was like, hey, can you come? I'm going to have this event. And I'm really scared because what if no one shows up? Like, I at least want to have one friend. He's like, yes. And his grandma's was a tamalera. So we woke up that day, we made tamales. And we gave tamales to people at the park. And like the 60 people that showed up, like it was like, that was like a testament to like everybody needs
someone. And there's always someone out there for someone.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of the times the scariest thing to do is to speak up and say, hey, this is who I am. And then next thing you know, other people can relate to you.
Yes. It's like practicing radical acceptance of yourself invites other people to do the same.
And I think that's what's crazy about like social media. It's such an amazing, beautiful platform that can be used negatively at times. But at the same time, it's if you're authentic, your community will come to you without even trying.
Yes.
It's just the fear of people not being authentic because they might get scrutinized. But so how do you deal with that now, having a whole community? Do you deal with scrutiny with the community or within your page? Because obviously I know there's a big gap, which we need to get to from the marriage to now. But it's gonna get spicy. But you know, how do you deal with that then and now? Do you deal with it differently?
I think God, like I realized that when it's like how you show up on social media, but also like if you let it have power over you or you have power over it. So for me, it was just like it can get overwhelming, but it's also like I choose how I take, like, it's like I see it like it's my little corner of the internet, my little page. And like I get to show up however I want and engage however I want. And like I'm so grateful that my community, they're like just like some real, just like badass mujeres that like show up for one another. And like this one girl was telling me, because I have like now I do like a Mujer Mariposa program where I like do like cohorts of women that I like coach and help. We help each other. And she's like, I want to be part of like this group because every time, like even just reading your comments, it's like I want to be friends with the women commenting because they uplift and they're there for each other. And I feel so grateful that that's the type of community like that's in my little corner of the internet, because I know that like social media is hard and it can be very like, you know, vicious. And I feel that it's important for me to show up with love for myself, and like for that to be the lead and the like como the standard that I'm like, I don't in my little community, I'm like, I don't tolerate y'all being mean to each other. I don't tolerate you being mean to me because I'm not mean to me, or I try my best not to. And I'm not, you know, and we're here to uplift one another.
So you mentioned you're not mean to you. So in those times when, let's say, since you said that you got divorced, the marriage was dwindling, it was fading for X, Y, and Z reason, and you didn't love yourself in those moments, how did you process it then?
I felt like I got divorced because I loved myself.
Okay.
Like it was one of the most loving things I did for myself. Like, for me, I had to, like, what led up to the divorce was, like, looking at myself in the mirror and asking, like, how will I love myself today? And that turned into little ones and to big choices.
And, you know, that's actually very true, because a lot of the time society tells us that if you divorce somebody, if you divorce someone, that it must mean that you failed, right? I've had a similar experience. So I think that a lot of the times that can go into your brain of you failed at something. And for a person that has gone their life checking off something in every time and making it happen, it's like, oh, I checked this off. Okay. I guess I have to uncheck that one now because now, you know, that didn't go that well. But in that process, you found yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that in my experience as well, you are right. It is a step of self-love towards you when you make that step rather than a failure feeling.
Yes. Yeah. And like, I feel like I checked the marriage box, I checked the divorce box, and even like checking the divorce box felt like so like revolutionary, because in my family, I think I was the first one to initiate a divorce.
How did your family take it?
Not good. Like, my mom was like, ay, pobrecito, ¿qué va a pensar la gente? Like, be grateful. Like, my mom was like, he's not beating you up. He's not cheating on you. You have a place to live. Like, shut up and be grateful.
Right.
Follow the Lord. Like, the Bible says, do not divorce.
Yeah.
My dad was like, you know, you're being emotional. You're being this. You're being that. And I had to choose to not, like, listen or, like, live for them, or live for the church, or live for, I'm like, I'm the only one that's living this life. I'm the only one that's waking up in this body, in this bed, in these, you know, conditions, and I'm not happy. And I like, if I love myself, I need to act accordingly, and I need to have a life that reflects that love for myself. So I remember, like, after I didn't get support from my family, I stopped, like, informing them. I, like, just kind of, like, set that boundary. And I, like, did my research. I found out all the paperwork that I needed to get done. I handled that by myself, like, got the paper signed, and it was like a birthday gift to myself. And getting those papers signed, like, I showed up to court by myself. Like, the judge looked at me. I, like, had a suitcase, and, like, I showed up to court. The judge is like, ma'am, are you sure? I'm like, positive. He's like, all right. He sealed it, signed it, and he's like, good luck. And my friend was waiting for me, because, like, straight from the court, we went on a road trip to LA, and that was, like, my gift. I showed up to my family, and I was like, I am divorced now. Like, it's my birthday. I'm divorced now. You have a choice whether to support me or not, but there's nothing you can do about this. It's my choice.
And then from then, a whole new journey started for you.
Yeah.
So you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, first,
I'm like, I don't know how you want.
yeah. So, like, the first person I came out to was, like, my ex-husband. We were in Vancouver, Canada, and we were watching Planet Earth. There was a segment on penguins.
Oh my God.
And it said, like, did you know there are homosexual penguins? And, like, I'm like, gay penguins. And, like, this is my moment.
I saw the light.
Yeah. So I was like, all casual, hey, just wanted to let you know I also like women. And he, like, looks at me, he's like, oh, he's like, I'm not surprised. I'm like, dope, cool. And that was, like, the conversation. It was, like, the least, like, exciting coming out, but it felt important for me. And in the moment, I was just like, well, I'm never gonna live it out, but so I'm like, I at least want to share this part about me. So after the divorce, I knew I wasn't, like, emotionally available to, like, start, like, dating women and, like, really, like, exploring my, like, sexuality. But I call it, like, my healing and my hotation, where I just I popped off, and it was beautiful, and it helped me, like, just, like, know myself as a sexual, sensual person, and to connect to my body, you know, after, like, being in the Christian path for so long. Like, it felt good to just have a life of my own, a choice of my own over everything. I felt like for the first time I was making choices over everything. Like, I lived by myself for the first time. I decorated exactly how I wanted to. Like, I chose where to live. I chose, like, my clothes. I went to salsa classes. I, like, was a salsa queen, bachata queen. I was, like, dating. I didn't ever date.
You were rediscovering yourself entirely.
Yes. I, like, was having, like, my moment. And so, and then I went to grad school, got my master's, and like, all throughout this, like, I started to land within myself. And when I felt ready, like, you know, like, poco a poquito, I had, like, my interactions with women, but then I fell in love with a woman, and, like, that changed everything for me. And it changed everything in like beautiful ways. And then like I was outed to my grandmother, so then it was just like a very like aggressive, just like, and then being public was also like very beautiful to like take up space and make it more visible. But also being public has, you know, has its painful or like down moments. But I feel like it's been a blessing. Like this whole ass journey has been like such a blessing, and a gift. I feel like after I got a second chance at life, como de vivir con ganas, and to be fully me, like in all like in all my glory and in all my mess.
Has there been ever a time when you've just second guessed to make a decision? Because you seem very driven and very, you know, like you said earlier, Aries. So you're like, if I want to do this, I'm going to do this, and that's it.
Yeah.
So would you say you battle more with second guessing yourself, or, you know, following through once you've started something, or any of those aspects of it? Or
I feel like once like I make that decision, like I just go. Like I go, like I like, this is what I want, how I want it, y me aviento.
Yeah.
And like, and that's like beautiful, because it's like how I've lived my life and I've gotten forward in that way. And what I'm learning now is to slow down.
Okay.
To slow down, and when I make my decision, like, yes, make it intentional, but also it doesn't always have to be a panzazo, you know?
So do you think that maybe you, instead of second guessing yourself, you're always putting things in front of yourself to maybe suppress or run away from certain things that do come up?
I would say like what I'm choosing not to run away from this time is being vulnerable. It's like, and I like for me, like to be sharing all this, yes, but to have to like put down your masks. Like I hate being vulnerable.
I love it.
I hate being vulnerable, but I know that's what I need in order to heal and live the way that I want to.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, you can put on any mask. Listen, you can have a different mask for every day of the week.
Yeah.
But the reality is that shit is tiring.
It's draining.
It's so draining. And I remember that for me, like, I'm very much an open book. And people sometimes get taken back by that. And somebody asked me the other day, don't you feel a kind of way that you just have no problem sharing things with people? And I said, no, I see it as a spirit. If a spirit puts in me to share a topic that is very vulnerable in this conversation, I don't have to know you for 5 years. For some reason, I'm supposed to share this story. Now, whether you know the reason now, 5 years from now, or 5 moments from now when you're on your own. Yeah, it's like it might not, the reason might not be for me. It might be for the person I'm telling. You know, like me sharing this can make you see things differently, can help you in your own thing that you're processing in your life.
Yeah.
And I just think that a lot of the times people feel vulnerability out of being judged, right? But there's so much healing in vulnerability.
Yes. And like your story is medicine. And telling your story is medicine, like for you and for those who are hearing it.
Yeah.
And like you said, like before too, it's like we're forced to be like hard, and like the softness is seen as weak, or the softness is seen as less than, or something to hide. And one of the like my biggest learning, or like my biggest prayer has been like, I want to be soft. Because that's how I know that I'm healing. That's how I know that I'm feeling. That's how I know that I'm not surviving anymore. Because survival asks you to be like this hard. You know, like I used to tell my sisters, like, when you go out on the streets, like put on your Pacoima face. Like put on your street face. Like your bitch face. Like,
what's your Pacoima face? Show it to us.
Like, see, me chief, if you catcall me, if you whistle at me, like, I'm not one to like fuck with, you know? Like, I will throw my chancla at you, senor. Like, not me. And I learned to put on that Pacoima face, like that, you know, I was like, I'm a bad bitch. I don't need anyone. I don't need anything. That hyper independence which is a trauma response.
It's such a trauma response because there is such a thin line in being independent, but being so independent that you don't know how to receive love.
Exactly.
And I had to learn that. I'm still battling it. I'm not going to lie. Yes. But I try to work on it. So
work in progress.
You know, so what are some things that you do to help you be more vulnerable nowadays?
Ooh, like, I have to remind myself, like, con cariño, like, to start, like, if I'm gonna be vulnerable, like, especially when it's, like, about, like, get in touch with me, like, what I need, what I'm feeling, even if it's, like, I'm feeling, you know, like, I need a hug. Mm-hmm. Like, that is so, for me, it's so vulnerable. But before I used to be like, I hate cuddling, like, that's a waste of time, like, a lo que venimos y ya cada quien.
Quítate la ropa.
Yeah, like... And now, like, for me, it's like letting myself be soft enough to be held and to hold. Encueradas, like, to hold. That's, for me, that's an act of, like, softness and vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Of, like, when you're not okay, you're not okay. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have to be strong for, you know, like, sometimes being strong is admitting that you're not.
Oh, 1,000% vulnerability takes so much strength
and courage
to be able to say, this is who I am, literally naked. Mm-hmm. Whether that's spiritually, physically, figuratively, it's like, this is me. And I think that Latinas have a hard time with that. Men have a hard time with that. You know, like, minorities. And it's just... I wish that message that you are living and, you know, releasing could be understood to the masses. Mm-hmm. Because this idea that it makes us weak is such a lie. It hinders our growth.
Yes. It's harmful and it's dangerous. Like, I feel like it leads to, like, you know, being hard. It leads us to wanting to control, mm-hmm. to be perfect, to put on this face, and, like, even to control others, because mm-hmm. when you don't feel like you just, like, at peace with yourself, you're not going to have peace around you.
Yeah.
And something that one of my mentors told me is, like, you cannot control other people's perception of you. Mm-hmm. And the only thing you have control over is you, your peace, and how you show up.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Now, you've been able to create all of those points mm-hmm. with your Badass Bonita. Mm-hmm. Now, what's for you with Badass Bonita coming up? What do you want to do with it? Because is the manuscript called Badass Bonita? Oh, wow. Yeah, I love that. Is it an autobiography of you?
It's a little bit like a little. We have some memoirs-ish, some stories, like narrative nonfiction. But I also put in, like, some, like, therapeutic tools and practices to, I'm kind of, like, I feel like it's like a little manual of, I share, like, okay, this is what intergenerational trauma looked like in my life. And this is kind of how to trace intergenerational trauma in your family. And this is a tool to do that. And these are ways to identify patterns. These are ways to address those patterns and heal. And so I want to pair both of them, because I think that part of my mission or my purpose is to bring healing. Mm-hmm. And it's como the theories that they taught me in school, so many of them were for, like, white, cis, like, hetero, upper middle class families, people. So part of, like, what I want to do is, like, to take that and make that, like, for us. Mm-hmm. Like, to bring the healing, the access, the tools, not only that they taught me at school, but, like, ancestral, like, some ancestral healing, some, like, community healing, community care. And that's a huge part of the book. And it's como vaporú para el corazón, you know? It's like, we create medicine. We create medicine with our stories, with what we are learning, and we share that with our community.
That's beautiful. I love that. So now and today, 2022, what does success mean to you?
Uy, I love that question. For me, success looks like doing what is most loving to me and my community. And I've had to like get away from the to do, because people hand you to do. Like, this is what you're supposed to do to be successful. Yeah. And these are the numbers. These are the, and I feel like for me, I would like a to-be list. How do I want to be in this world? How do I want to take up space in this world? Who is the woman that I want to become and the woman that I needed growing up? So for me, I think I feel successful when I am actively choosing love for myself and my community and actively choosing healing. And I know that looks different in every stage of my life. So I feel like if I were to die, and I ask myself this question all the time, like, if I were to die right now, like, would I be okay with this life that I've lived? And if the life that I'm living feels loving to me, yes, I'm good. Because like when you pass on, or like your legacy, it's not going to be just your number in your account. It's not going to be your number on your Instagram. It's not going to be the home you lived in, all the things that we like to flex in this world when we're alive. It's like the relationships you've built. It's the community. It's the light in your eyes. It's the peace that you feel when you go to bed. And when my life is reflecting that, I know I'm like living successfully. And when I'm not, when my life isn't reflecting that, I know I have to adjust.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Yes.
I adored talking to you and hearing all about your journey and what you have going on and being a badass brown bonita. I can't wait for your book and everything else that's coming.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to follow you, where can they find you?
Badass X Bonita.
Perfect. And until next time, bye.